Welcome to the Penny Z Show, where you get to learn how real people overcame real issues. Get ready to take notes and, most importantly, take action. Here's your host, Penny Z.
Hi, this is Penny Z with the Penny Z Show. As all of you know, we are in a series called Overcoming I'm Not Enough. We're here to transform lives, one life at a time, with real, relevant, and relatable topics. Today on the Penny Z Show, we have a special guest, Janelle Anderson. Janelle and I met several months ago at a conference, and I'm so excited to have her part of the Penny Z Show today. But first, let me give you a little bit of her backstory and also have her share a little bit about her bio. Janelle is a personal development empowerment coach for women. She is the founder and owner of Emerging Life Coaching, which she started in 2014 as a successful coach for IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. She has over 1,500 hours of coaching and helping others through her practice. She specializes in helping women over 40 and older in personal development, things like building strength, talents, personality traits, values, and passion. Janelle really wants to help you with your next phase of life, to help navigate successfully through midlife and on to the future. So please welcome with me our special guest of the Penny Z Show, Janelle Anderson. Janelle, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. So is there anything else? I know that you are a certified coach in many aspects and you have other things to your bio and your background. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners before going into your story?
Well, along with the certification, which came from training, I'm also a PCC, which is kind of a big deal in the coaching world. And that means that I have well, you read 1,500 hours, but you have to have at least 500 hours to get that. And so that's a cool milestone. It just means that I've been coaching for a while and I have experience under my belt. But you also have to have like high ethics and standards that they hold you to. So in the coaching world, you can call yourself a coach without any of that training. And I just like to point out that if you're looking for a coach, find one that has those designations, because it means that they spent some time and energy and money really getting trained as a coach. So that part. And then I also got my master's last year. Now I'm 65 and I just got my master's, and I had been working on it for years, but I finally did it. It's a master's in Christian counseling. So I need to share that with people because it was a pretty big deal.
Absolutely. Well, first, congratulations. What a milestone and accomplishment. And yes, celebrating is an important piece of life. So congratulations, and we will celebrate that with you on the Penny Z Show right now. Also, you do not even remotely come close to looking your age, Janelle. So that is awesome. I want to be you when I'm 65. So yeah. Congratulations on that as well. You take very good care of yourself.
Thank you. Yes, I want to live a long, healthy, happy life. So
absolutely. And that's what you help other people do as well. So we will learn a little bit more about Janelle, her coaching, and her business in a little bit. But before we get into that, I would like Janelle to share a little bit about her story in her life about I'm Not Enough. Janelle?
Yes. So I think probably for me, that message was the strongest around I'm not good enough to be heard. Speaking, sharing my opinions, my thoughts. For most of my life, just until the last recent 10 years maybe, where I've come through a lot to get where I'm at today. But for my childhood, I was raised in a big family. We had 8 children. So imagine 8 children around the dinner table. Everybody's talking, laughing, chattering away, and I would try to be heard, and I'd try to share something, and I would get so frustrated that I'd actually turn and talk to the wall. And I would say, I'd talk to the wall, and my siblings would all stop and look at me and say, "What are you doing?" And I would say, "Well, the wall listens to me, you guys don't." And they would just laugh and go on, and it really became this family joke. Even several years ago, we make these family movies with scripts, and we all have a part, and it has a plot. And part of one of those movies, it was like a flashback to my teenage years where I was talking to the wall, because it's just sort of this family joke. Well, I didn't really realize how much that message had embedded in my heart from my childhood on until, you know, like I said, the last 10 years or so. But I always would hold back when I was in a situation where people were sharing opinions, whether it was a meeting or even in conversation with friends. I would just sit back and let everybody else talk, because I felt like if I share, it's not going to be good enough. They're not going to like what I'm saying. They're not going to agree with me. It's going to sound stupid. So I would just stay quiet, even though I had stuff to share, but I wouldn't share it.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting topic. We haven't talked about this topic yet on the Penny Z show. And so I love this. Not that I'm happy that you experienced this, obviously, but if I may share a little bit in kind of interacting with you, Janelle, I had a similar experience growing up where I did not feel heard, but it wasn't because I was sitting around a table with 8, siblings and talking and everything. We came from a very, very small family. And my mom always taught us to be proper in public and proper over at people's homes. And so my messaging, which was actually, we got the same message, but it was presented differently. My messaging was kids should be seen and not heard. So I have always felt part of my I'm not enough story, which I've shared with our listeners, is I have always felt invisible and not heard because I was not supposed to be seen. So I love your perspective from it. How did that make you feel? Because one of the things I think as adults that we need to identify is when we have a I'm not enough story, it usually means that something from our childhood was triggered. We learned that behavior well back into our childhood. And then if we don't identify it or recognize it or want to change it, it continues into our adulthood. And so you recognize that while you were going through. Tell us a little bit more of how you felt around that when you were growing up and into being an adult.
Well, I felt, like you even said, invisible and overlooked. I felt unimportant. I remember several times throughout my childhood, I would come in to talk to my dad. And my dad, of course, was working really hard to take care of and raise and provide for this huge family. And my mom stayed at home. He was in the Navy. So he would come home and be relaxing in his chair, reading his newspaper. And I would come in to try to tell him something because I wanted attention from my dad. And I would be talking to him. And halfway through, he would either change the subject, get up and leave, go back to his newspaper. I mean, he would just shut out, like he was finished with the conversation. And I know he didn't mean it. He didn't mean to communicate to me that I was not important, or what I had to say was not important. And, our parents are not perfect. My dad's a wonderful dad and loved me and everything. But I remember, in fact, even in my teenage years and adult years, there were times where that would happen. And so it would communicate to me, you're not important. What you have to say right now is boring. It's not relevant. So it's safer just to be quiet. And it would hurt. It really hurt. And so I think to protect myself, I would just shut down and I would tell myself, it's safer to just be quiet than to speak up and be cut off and hurt, that way. So, it just, but at the same time, I would feel I don't know what the word is for what I would feel, but I would want to share. I would want to be a part of the conversation. So there was this frustration with having things to say, but then the fear of, if I say them, will they even come out right? Will they make sense? Will anybody care? Will anybody agree with it? Will it be something they even want to hear, or will they think it's stupid and dumb, So these conversations, these looping thoughts would go through my mind, and I'd just be too afraid to speak up. Or if I did speak up, sometimes I'd be interrupted, or the reaction I would see would be like they didn't get it, or they would disagree, and then it would just reinforce that message to me that, see? And then it
Right.
was frustrating because I felt like, this is what I have to say, but apparently it's not relevant and people don't like it. So I must be really stupid or not enough, right? I don't have good enough thoughts and opinions to share.
Right. And what, how that hurts us and transforms us. Because I know that for 40 years of my life, when I experienced my I'm not good enough to take care of my brother, everything along the way, like what you just said, when somebody would do something, or I didn't, I wasn't good enough to take care of my brother, so therefore I wasn't good enough. And so I didn't make the cheerleading squad, or I didn't get a promotion, and it just kind of continued. I was self-sabotaging, not because I intended to, but because of an experience that I had as a child that I then continued to manifest in my life until I recognized that and decided to stop that. And is that what you recognized 10 years ago? Did it take you that long to, I think you recognized it while you were going through it, but when did you say enough? Was that 10 years ago, or was that at a different time in your life?
Yeah, it was about 10 years ago. I had a lot of other trauma from early in my life too that had been buried. And I was in a church where they really focus on, like, their main focus is inner healing. And I'm in this church and I realized I keep running up against this wall. Like, I feel like I'm getting close to people, but then I pull back, or even in my relationship with God. And I got to the place where I recognized that. Whereas I think up until then, like you said, there was a lot of self-sabotaging. There was a lot of just, bringing that into my life as an adult, not speaking up out of fear. And so people didn't know me very well. They didn't know what I had in my mind. And, the quiet people sometimes do just get overlooked because they're not speaking up. And then
Right.
for me, it just multiplied again, like, well, nobody really cares. I'm just sitting here being quiet. Nobody's even noticing. And it was, I wasn't speaking up. I wasn't, like, letting myself be seen and heard. And so there was that self-sabotaging. And all that had been going on. And I'm in this church where a lot of stuff gets stirred up in this kind of a church, because they're talking about it. And they're talking about, going back to the roots and figuring out, where those things started in your childhood and dealing with them and working through them. And so I began to feel this desire to finally get to the bottom of all these things and get free.
Good for
And
you.
so, yeah. And so I finally did. We have this ministry called Freedom Teams, where it's these groups of people that get together with you and help you talk things out and go back to your childhood and really pray through things and get insight why you created those messages, and understanding that it wasn't that you had a bad childhood or bad parents, but you internalized these messages and you believed that they were true, and then it just compounds from there. So a lot of inner work and understanding of how our minds work and how these subconscious messages get embedded, right? And that you can change them. And you can reprogram how you're thinking and feeling and believing. And then that affects how you show up, and that affects everything, really. So I started that work. And then about 5 years ago, I was looking for a business I could start to become my retirement income. And I wanted to do something I really loved and was passionate about. And I eventually discovered coaching. So as I'm going through the coach training, our school really emphasizes a lot of that inner work as well. And their methodology is called COR energy coaching, and COR meaning your heart and the energy of your thoughts and emotions. And so the same kind of thing. And so I learned as a coach how to do that with people, but it also helped me even go deeper and discover even more. And that's where I think the whole thing came to light about this message that I'm not good enough to be heard. Like, I kept running up against it. And I was even hired by my school, coach training school. And as part of my job, I had to host a call-in show, sort of like this. And I would interview other coaches, and I had to find the coaches and I had to interview them. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I mean, I had to put myself out there. And my boss at the time, the first time I did one, he was on the call listening, and he gave me feedback afterwards. And he said, you're still being too, what did he say? Like, you're not like energetic enough, and you've got to speak up, and you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And he was right. But it was like, for me, it was like face to face again with that message. Oh no, here I put myself out there. I wasn't heard, or I wasn't accepted the way I was, kind of a thing. But then I decided, you know what? That's that old message. That's not what he was saying. He was saying you just have areas to improve. And he was for me. He wanted me to improve, and I wanted to improve. So I had come to a whole new place when that message came out, and I was able to stop, think about it, dial down into where's that coming from? Oh, that's that old message. Is it really true? No, I just have things to learn. And so I decided I'm going to see it that way, and I'm going to start working on my skills as a facilitator, as a speaker. And that's how I looked at it. It really helped me a lot. I think that was the turning point for me to finally like find my voice and have confidence that what I have to share is important and valuable, and people do want to hear it.
Well, congratulations. That's how I started the Penny Z show, is to share my voice and share my story, but also give a platform for other people to share their story, because everybody has an I'm not enough story, whether it's just a moment or whether it's for lifetimes like us for many years. And what I find and what I want to help empower others is, first off, you don't have to continue to stay in that I'm not enough mentality if you are in it, number one. And number two, you're not alone. There are, people out there, living in our neighborhoods and at our work and at our church and in our environment that have experiences and that have overcome I'm not enough to I'm more than enough, and doing their purpose and living their best lives. And so congratulations for identifying that. I love, first off, thank your church for obviously offering this to its congregation. I believe whether it's through spiritual opportunities or it's through a coaching organization, there are incredible opportunities to release those fears, to release that mindset. And when I went through mine about a year and a half, I guess it's been almost about 2 years ago, I was doing the happy dance for weeks. I felt like I was on cloud nine when I finally recognized that I had self-sabotaged for all these years with the I'm not good enough mentality. And I went through the exercises and I went through, releasing it to the world and releasing it out of my being and out of my mindset. It was an amazing feeling. But I think one of the things you mentioned is sometimes we live in fear, or we live in a comfortable world that we don't necessarily want to give. It's almost like the fear of the unknown is better than the fear of, or the fear of the known is better than the fear of the unknown. And so sometimes I think we are not willing to do the personal growth that we need to do and the introspective work because of living in that fear. Do you have any advice or anything around fear that you experienced when you're going through that you could share with the audience? Because you mentioned that earlier, and I love that, to be able to pass through or get through your fear.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's right on. I see this a lot in my clients, or my potential clients. There are women that come to me that they want change, but then there's something like, oh, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And it's usually that fear. And I remember experiencing that myself when I finally realized, okay, I've got to actually go back into the past. In fact, I felt like God spoke that to my heart. Like, I want to go deeper, but you've got to let me. You've got to let me go to those places. And I had so buried all this stuff from my past that I thought, oh, why should I go back there? That's like years ago, like 35 years ago. But no, it kept coming up. And it took me a whole year from the point that I heard that to where I actually said, okay, because of that fear of, I don't want to feel those emotions again. I don't want to look at that stuff. I don't want to tell people about it. There was a lot of shame involved, and shame covers, shame makes you hide. And
Mhm.
it's worse when you don't deal with it. It just gets worse. But if you finally say, okay, I'm going to open the door to this thing, it's like airing out the rooms of your heart. Like, let the light in. Let's get this stuff out. It actually is not as hard. It wasn't as hard as I thought. And it didn't take as long. And it was such a release. And like you said, the freedom. I've been telling people this lately that, in fact, a really good friend of mine the other day just said, you look different. What is different about you? You look great, but there's something different. And I've known her for 35 years. And I thought, what is it? And it's this new confidence that I have and this freedom. And I feel like for the first time ever, like I am at home in my own skin. And I'm able to embrace who I am, love who I am, not compare myself to others, not care if others opinions about me anymore. Like, I'm not trying to live up to somebody else's expectation or even my own. I'm me. I know me and I love me. and I feel it's just freeing and it's joyful. And that's what I want to say to other women, especially, is that you are so amazing and awesome. And there's so much good stuff in you, so much power and beauty and gifts, and it's all there. And it's like you've got to peel away all the stuff you've taken on that's not you, so you can see who you are. And then when you see who you are, when you can embrace it, not in a prideful, arrogant way, but just, in I call it a quiet confidence, a
Mhm.
peaceful place of, this is me. And it's beautiful and I love it. And I have a part in this world and I have a gift to give that only I can give. And
Mhm.
there is just a beauty, an inner beauty that starts to shine out when women embrace who they are fully and really shed all the old identities, all the old stuff that's really not even who they are. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I would say, even though it's scary at first, I was afraid to do it. If you find somebody that really knows what they're doing, that can walk you through that process, do it, because it is the most freeing thing you could do and the most honorable thing you could do for yourself. And it's not as scary and awful as you think it's going to be.
Absolutely. And I will attest to that and support Janelle in that, because a couple things that she's mentioned, audience, is number one, it is like peeling back. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. And the more you peel back, the more things just kind of shed, and just are released. And if anyone is listening and you've ever experienced something, and unfortunately, whether it's been a divorce or it's been a really difficult time in your life, and for whatever reason that is no longer part of your life, and you just feel the weight being taken off of your shoulders, that's exactly what this is, but probably 10 and 20 and 100% better, because it's your overall life. And I will have to agree, it's when you say things out loud, you had mentioned, the shame. And when you talk about it out loud in a safe environment with
Yes.
people that are not going to judge you one way or the other, they're just there for you in the present moment, and you're able to verbalize it or write it and say it, it is amazing. It's a healing process that I experienced, and probably you and others have experienced, that is hard to explain until you've actually experienced. It's like once you've said this shameful, this dark, this difficult thing out to the open, and you put it out in the universe, it just goes away. I don't know how to explain it other
Yeah.
than it just goes away. Now, there are circumstances that might come back in your life that you have to deal with, but that release for yourself is truly amazing. And so I'm sure Janelle works with her clients on that. And Janelle, we're getting close to being done, but I'm sad because I don't want to be done talking to you. It's been an enjoyable and incredible connection. I feel like we're kindred spirits, both
Yes.
in our past as well as our present. But Two quick questions at the end. Number one, do you have any final words of wisdom with your experience of identifying your I'm not enough, kind of coming through the tools and techniques you used to the other side that you'd like to share in closing with our listeners? And then secondly, share your business and how our listeners can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. I did think of a couple of practical exercises just to begin to get to know who you are. I think that's one really key component, not only dealing with the stuff, from the past or the shame, but also who am I? I find that a lot of women don't know who they are. They've been so busy focused on their families and their children and their husbands and everybody else, or they're nurturing everybody else, that they haven't taken time to really know who they are. And they're kind of lost once the children grow up and start leaving home. They're kind of like, I don't even know who I am, much less what I want to do. So there's a lot you can do. But one thing that I found that was really interesting, is really cool exercise that you can think about an activity that you really, really enjoy, and then break it down into micro tasks. Like I did one on contra dancing, which is the type of dance I love to do. So micro tasks would be like picking out an outfit, getting dressed and ready, driving to the dance, getting to the dance and putting on my shoes, and all the little pieces of it. Maybe it's cooking a meal, looking up the recipe, going shopping. So break it down into little micro tasks, and then each one rate on a scale of 1 to 5, from unhappy to very happy, what you feel when you do that micro task. And then when you're done, look at all the happies, or the 4s and 5s that you rated, and pull out of there, what is the main component in that you really enjoyed? And then where could those things be used in other places in your life? And what it does is it shows you your passions, shows you those things that you're really good at, that you really love doing, because that's why that's something you love doing, because there's something underneath it. There's either one of your strengths or your talents or something you're passionate about, and that's why you love that activity. So breaking it down into its minor little parts, and then seeing what parts you really love and why. And when I did that exercise about the dancing, what came out was I love the connection and community. I love the fun and the laughter, and I love the movement with the music. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because a lot of people in my life don't see that part of me. It's one of those things, again, like people perceive me as being quiet or reserved because of all that history of not speaking up. And yet here's a place where I'm really myself, and I'm letting go, and I'm like, woohoo, I'm having fun. And I thought, I'm not showing that in every part of my life. And I'm going to start showing that, because that's a part of me. So that's a great exercise to just start to get to know who you are. And you can also do a list of all the things you really love doing that you can get in the flow, and time goes by and you're not even aware that you haven't eaten. And look at those and ask yourself, what is it about those activities that make you love it so much? Where is the strength in you, that innate ability you have to do that really well, or to really enjoy it? And start noticing those things. And that's a great way to really get to know who you are innately, how you're designed as a strength or a personality type or a passion. So those are two things I thought about.
Excellent.
And
I love those ideas. Thank you. Thank you
you're
for
welcome.
sharing.
Yeah. So those are kinds of things I love to do with my clients. I have a course I call the Life Purpose Course, where I take them through some workbooks and videos and some assessments. And we do this whole deep dive investigation, exploration into who are you and what makes you you. So that's really a lot of fun. But if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can just email me at Janelle@emerginglifecoaching.com. That's my website as well. And on my website, I've got a free download. It's a guidebook for women 40 plus who are ready to quit their day job and do what they really want. And so they can grab that. They can come into my Facebook group. There's a button there as well, and that's a great way to interact. So yeah, just reach out in one of those ways.
Excellent. Well, Janelle, thank you so much for being on the Penny Z Show today. We also will have Janelle's contact information on our website, www.thepennyzshow.com. And we will be launching Janelle's interview, and we will also have her information on our social media as well, so that you can reach out and connect with her afterwards. So again, everyone, this has been another fantastic episode of the Penny Z Show. We wish you a wonderful and a happy day. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more, including specific ways to empower yourself, go to thepennyzshow.com.